It's Monday. Let's raise a glass to the beginning of another week. It's time to unscrew, uncork, or saber a bottle, and let's begin exploring the wine glass. Today, I'm bringing you another episode of Raid Your Cellar, brought to you by the Benchmark Wine Group. Join in as we learn about Spanish wine, led by Master Sommelier Chris Blanchard. Welcome back to Exploring the Wine Glass podcast, the podcast for people who love wine and want to explore it more. I'm Lori Budd, a UC Davis winemaking program, someday service, and WSET Level 2 graduate. You can find Exploring the Wine Glass on all of the socials, as well as your favorite podcast catchers. Thank you to everyone who has given us a review. Leaving a review on iTunes or the purple icon, or whatever the heck it's called, will drive us up the charts and allow more wine lovers to find us. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time. I promise, I'll never tell you what to drink, but I'll always share what's in my glass.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Michelle Erland. On behalf of Benchmark Wine Group, we'd like to welcome you to Raid Your Cellar, Sipping Through Spain edition. We do this every Thursday, and as you guys know, we pick a different theme to talk about: wines, region, history, all the stories, everything that goes along with it. The whole concept of this tasting is to bring a panel together of diverse backgrounds. So we have some sommeliers, trade professionals, collectors, consumers, and we all have one thing in common, and that is a passion for wine. So before I turn it over to Chris, I want to just remind everyone that tonight we are once again partnering with the United Sommeliers Foundation, and we are raising awareness, raising donations. So we will put that into the chat. Feel free to donate to all the viewers. And without further ado, I'm excited to introduce our special host, Master Sommelier Chris.
Yay, thank you. Applause.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm not, I'm not great at Zoom webinars. I don't even know how to say the name webinar, so people laugh at me, and the kids might run in here, any minute now. So I hear one screaming outside the door, but that's how life is. So it's my little chance to lock away in my son's room. You can probably see all the Michael Jackson posters and Stevie Wonder, and he's really into that. Anyway, so I got my glass of wine. I'm in a room by myself, and everything's good. So welcome to this seminar, webinar. I first wanted to, Chris Blanchard is my name. I'm a Master Sommelier. I worked mainly in Napa, opened restaurants like Red and Solage, and I worked at the Chateau Marmont as a wine director there down in LA with all the fancy movie stars. And, so anyway, I've done this sommelier job for a long time, and I've been a master since, hard to believe, over 10 years, which is crazy. And let me just briefly tell you the story of the Sommelier Foundation, because it's such an amazing thing for me to be a part of. And it was just over 2 months ago on St. Patrick's Day, actually, that we basically found out the restaurant here in Napa was closing. The sommelier there was going to be let go from his job for quite a while. And I got a call later that night from a guy in Vegas who was really worried about feeding his kids, all these just normal things that people were sort of in despair, trying to figure out what to do next. A sommelier is, sometimes we think of them as these elitist, fancy people that, just drink champagne all day and whatever and have a great life. But honest to God, it's not really that. It's basically going into a restaurant, getting yelled at by your GM and your chef to make numbers. It's dealing with guests that sometimes aren't the easiest. It's managing a wine program. It's having to deal with the politics of wine reps and big companies and distributors. It's coming home, at 2 a.m, not being able to sleep, and it's going to work at 2 p.m, not seeing your family. Anyway, it's one of those jobs that isn't maybe what you think it is. These are all just normal human beings that are trying to get by. And the core that they have is that they have an intense passion for wine. Like, why the hell would we do this if we didn't, right? Why would I spend all this money to try and get through this sommelier program? I didn't do it for anybody else or to get a job. I did it because I just love wine. I love the people involved in wine and everything. And every one of these sommeliers who now, I'm sitting in this room right here and I write checks all day long. And they're sent to people all across the country who have some pretty anonymously, by the way. I mean, we review everybody, all the sommeliers anonymously, and on a point system, come up with people that really are in need and deserve. And so I sit here and write the checks out all day long. And it's a great concept. Christy Norman, that is at Spago in Beverly Hills. We started texting each other. I was freaked out. I said, "What do we do?" And she said, "Start a GoFundMe page," which we did just over 2 months ago, which I did at like 1 a.m, not knowing how to do it at all. We started getting donations, and then we put together a board with a bunch of sommelier friends, and this thing's blown up, and we're reaching $400,000. And the thing is, it's not just that 400,000 isn't just sitting in the bank. What happens is I walk out of this room, go down to the mailbox, and pick up the checks. The checks are made out to the USF. I go down to the bank with my mask on, wait in line with everybody else, hand sanitizer. The money goes in the bank, and then I come back here and I write the checks. So it's like the money comes in, the money goes out. Nobody's waiting around. There's no red tape. I mean, it's just like in and out, which is fantastic. And so, not to go on and on about it, but I really appreciate what Benchmark has done, particularly with Mr. Parker, who was one of the very first people to send some money in on the GoFundMe page, which I was just blown away at. And I appreciate everybody that's donated. And I'm just very excited. I appreciate you all being here. And I wanted to do this. Some of the guests today have brought wines from all over Spain. I was looking at doing Catalan as a focus, and so you guys can ask any questions. But the region of Catalan, if you've ever been there, really sort of extends over the 2 countries, Spain, obviously, and France, and the Pyrenees Mountains. This whole area between like Mori and the Roussillon, and down through Girona and Figueres, all the way to Barcelona. This is a crazy area. It's very mountainous, and if you can imagine this unusual part of the Pyrenees. I lived there for a little while, and sorry, I'm going to play you some music. When at 6 a.m, you'd wake up in this small village, and the village would have these huge horns, attached to the sides of everybody's apartments on the streets, and so you'd wake up. Sorry, and you hear this? You guys hear this? This would blare out your window, at 6 a.m, and then suddenly after a minute or so, it would stop and you'd hear this, "Allo, allo." And then they would give these speeches about what was going on, like there'd be fresh meat or something in the market that day. So anyway, it's just a crazy place, and the wines are fantastic. And I won't go on about it, but it includes areas like Priorat, which we're all familiar with, an area that's really not that old, but it's a bunch of sort of, hippies and crazy wine people that came together. I can say that because my parents are. Anyway, so they came together in 1979 to start this group of 5, basically, and just amazing what they did to this area. Now you look at the wines from Priorat, they're some of the best wines with René Barbier, and it's amazing. I believe somebody brought some Priorat today, right?
Yeah, that would be me. I did. I have to unmute myself. I brought the Clos Erasmus, and what I love about Priorat is it's really only one of probably 2 places in the world that really does a great job with Grenache. We all know Chateauneuf. What they do in Priorat is, I think, almost the other side of the coin. To me, the Grenache in Chateauneuf, what stands out there is sort of the bready, sweat socks, but in a good sense kind of character. This is entirely different. This is like blueberry jam on the nose, but then it's all minerals. It's absolutely a liquid fruit, liquid mineral kind of thing, but with a perfect balance, with really great acid. Even though it's 15% alcohol, and you'd say, "Wow, that's way too much." It's not at all. You don't feel the alcohol. I think
Mr. Parker, could I butt in for a second?
Sure.
If you're in the Priorat, it's the most incredible area because this is all this black slate, and it just reflects all the heat. It's very, very warm and hot over there. Crazy hot. But the wines are they have extraction to them. They're certainly big wines, but they have such a beautiful elegance and finesse, and also this incredible sense of candied violets and just something that's completely unique, way more expressive, I think, than Châteauneuf de Pau.
Yes, I agree. And the slate, there's a certain quartz character to the soil too. If you see it, it kind of glistens even though it's a black soil, it glistens in the sun. Really low production on the vines. And these, I think they give it a really good oak character, but again, you don't taste it. The fruit is incredible. The balance is pure and perfect. And you could say it's an iron fist and a velvet glove. We'll take the iron fist out of it. It's all velvet glove. It's just perfect. And this wine, the Clos Erasmus, half the time, I mean, Eric Solomon's one of the owners, but half the time it's getting 100-point scores. The other half of the time it's getting 97s, 98s. You can get the 97, 98-point wines for half the price of the 100-point wines. And it's hard to believe something could be better than this.
She's also the only female member of the Gang of Five, Daphne.
Yes, Daphne, right.
And she is fantastic. She makes some of the most incredible wines from that region.
Yeah. Well, this is.
Anybody else drinking Priorat?
I've got the Finca Dofi from 2015. Now it's 14.5. It's more elegant than some of the others. I noticed Palacios tends to be quite elegant, but it's beautiful, flowing wine. And
so the difference there is that there's Cabernet, I believe, in the Dauphy, whereas the Erasmus, it's just Grenache and Syrah.
Now the Finca Dofi is a single vineyard, which is over 90% Grenache, a little bit of Carignana, just a little bit. I don't think there's any cab in the Finca Dofi.
There's no cab in that one?
No.
I'll have to do some research. Very good.
I just did.
And what else is everyone drinking? Different regions? I know there's some sherry, Rioja. I'm drinking. What do we got? 09.
090 guy.
Yeah, that's a killer vintage, a Grand Reserva.
This was a Christmas present, and usually you can find me in the Italian wine section. But after trying this wine for the first time, changed my life. Now I'm exploring all over Spain, thanks to also Lydia has been introducing me to a lot of gems.
What is it you that turned you on about it? What blew your mind?
The fruit was so vibrant. There was also a lot of complexity to it, lots of different elements, layers that every time I sipped it, I had a different story, and I said, I need to explore this region some more. So
yeah.
I thought I would be the only strange person who drank sherry. I thought it purposefully because I thought that sherry needs more love in the market, and so I bought a bottle from Benchmark that's actually quite old. This was bottled, probably decades ago. It's Sibarita from Casa Pedro de Mec before Osborne acquired the Cellares, and it is incredible. That's all I can say. I mean, my whole office space here smells like the Garden of Eden. It's just
that's different than my smell over here with the 16-year-old boy's room.
I mean, and the textural nature of this wine. Okay, so it's dry, it's resinous, but it also has incredibly rich palate texture. I can't explain this juxtaposition, and I'm absolutely having a field day with this bottle. It's incredible.
Man.
Well, interesting you chose that wine because I happen to have one of those old bottles of Sibarita, which I don't know what I'm saving it for, but for something very, very, very special. But I also brought a Palo Cortado.
One of my favorites there.
And I thought I was going to be the only sherry. Little did I know that you actually brought my very favorite, which is the Sibarita, which is a richer style Palo Cortado. I think there's a slightly higher percentage of Pedro Jimenez in that Palo Cortado, so it's not quite as bone dry. The one I have is the Fernando de Castilla Antique, which is a small independent bodega in Jerez, that was, I think it's probably only the wine, it's maybe 20 years old, although it bought old Soleras from a neighboring winery. And it's also just incredibly beautiful, but it doesn't have quite the same richness. I think it's a little bit more linear, but also, a little bit leaning a little bit more towards the Amontillado style.
Yeah.
But cheers to the sherry sherry lovers, and we'll end with this too.
Is Palo Cortado really that rare? I mean, it's kind of it makes for a really good story, right? Where the floor mysteriously disappears or whatever, and you've got a cross. But I mean, don't people just? What do you think?
I think we'll ask Felipe the real answer to that. Although I will tell you though that I have been told in every bodega you visit, and I think one of the reasons I was inspired by this was I was there exactly a year ago this week. So I was thinking, okay, I represent all of Spain, and this was what I was in love with a year ago. But every single producer will tell you define Palo Cortado a little differently. Given that we have Felipe on the panel and he is of sherry blood, let's see how he tells us about Palo Cortado and how his family winery makes Palo Cortado.
Felipe, unmute.
That would be helpful, right?
I put you on the spot, Felipe.
That's quite all right. I had a little bird whispered in my ear what people were going to be drinking, so I decided not to bring sherry, which is, like Catherine was saying, it runs through my veins. But let me tell you about Palo Cortado. It is true that each winery tells you a different story. I'm going to try to be brief and explain it as in a nutshell. So when you're making sherry all comes from one grape, which is the Palomino grape. It's a white grape, and you wouldn't imagine that by just looking at the wine. But it's a white grape. It's very neutral, not very aromatic, and you make a white wine with it. And then at that point, you're going to decide which one of the two main families of sherries you're going to go for. Either you're going to do a fino or you're going to go and do an oloroso. The finos undergo what we call biological aging. That means that when it's aging in the cask, we put the sherry in the cask. We fortify the wines to 50%. We add a little bit more alcohol, make them 15%, and the wine naturally develops this layer of yeast that floats on the surface of the wine, protecting it from oxidation. And that will make a fino style. If you want to make an oloroso, what you do is you fortify the base white wine a little bit higher. You fortify it to 17, 18%, and that prevents the floor yeast from forming, okay? And that develops, ages oxidatively in contact with oxygen, gains that color that we can all admire in Catherine's glass there. She has right in front of the camera.
Oh, that's that.
And then you have this when you make that selection, when you decide, okay, am I going to do a fino or am I going to do an oloroso? That responds to the quality and the character of the base wine with which you start. And also, it has to do with how the wines develop in the first year of aging. So when you're making an oloroso, that is pretty clear. The wines are usually heavier, thicker, have more body, more weight, and more rustic, if you would like. You make those olorosos. The finos, the wines that you select for finos are the most delicate, the most pungent, the most aromatic, the lightest, and those you fortify to 15% and age on the floor. But you keep them under observation, okay? So they're on probation for a year or so. And after a year, you say, okay, is the floor developing nicely? Is the wine still have the pungency, the aroma, the freshness that I want for my finos? And then if you say yes, then they will go into the Solera system. If some of those wines that you originally classified as a fino do not make the second cut, then you're not going to throw them out. So what you're going to do is you're going to re-fortify them, bring the alcohol up to 18%, kill off all the floor, and let them age like olorosos. And olorosos age longer oxidatively, so the original delicacy and pungency of the wine is not that important. But Palo Cortados come from those wines, some of those wines that are originally selected to be fino because of their delicacy, because of the pungency, because of the lightness, that are then, because the flor did not develop correctly, are then refortified and turned into olorosos. And it is among those olorosos that you find the Palo Cortado. And the name Palo Cortado basically means a broken stroke or a broken stick, okay? When the winemaker is running around the winery, checking each barrel to decide what type of sherry they contain, the finos usually are marked with a stroke, okay? Un palo, a stick, a stroke, okay? And the olorosos are marked with an O, with a circle, okay? So when he's doing that second classification, running through all of the barrels, tasting them for quality, ensuring that they are what they're meant to be, he might find a cask that has a stick signifying a stroke, signifying a fino, but it's no longer a fino. He needs to turn it into an oloroso. So he would cut that stroke. He would just cross that stroke, and that is what Palo Cortado means. And that is why these Palo Cortados are wines that are originally designed to be finos, but did not make the cut and became oloroso, but with that lightness and that elegance of an amontillado. So it's an in-between wine, okay? I hope I was able to explain.
Beautifully done.
Love it.
That was awesome. And so I'm looking at her. What else, Lydia? What are you into? What are you drinking?
Oh man, so what I'm into, basically everything in Spain. But I'm drinking right now Garnacha from Vinos de Madrid, Sierra de Gredos.
Oh yes.
And I think it's one of the more exciting regions for Garnacha in Spain right now. I'm particularly drinking Las Moradas de San Martín. I don't know if you guys can see it. 2016 Senda. And it's just delicious, super bright and fresh, stainless steel. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just, so basically I was doing a virtual tasting earlier today about Las Moradas, and you can really see how the Garnacha grows, and it really reflects on the glass. You know, you have the bright fruits, you have the minerality a little bit, you have a little bit of the earth, and they're herbaceous. They grow lavender next to the fields, and it's something that really translates into the glass. So it's really exciting, and the best part is under $20 for a single vineyard Garnacha, which is super exciting. And yeah, so that's what I'm drinking. I could speak on it the whole day, but I'll let another person speak.
Well, I was just going to say, people always ask me what the most exciting regions are around the world, or what I think is the most exciting going. But I always think those wines from Madrid, Toledo. Do you know the guys Landi?
Yeah.
The Landi brothers. That's some of the most crazy stuff. I forget what it's called, Las Brumas. Are you familiar with that wine? It's all very old Garnacha, like 80-year-old Garnacha.
Yes.
Katrin, do you know it?
Are they? I've heard of it. I have not tasted the Landi. That is also in the Gredos part of Dio Madrid.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, because this is a particular sort of corner of the Dio, and I will say that was the region that I had the pleasure of going to 2 years ago, and it was kind of added on to a press trip that we were involved in, and sadly it was not Lydia who was with me, but another one of her colleagues, and we had, we were at Las Moradas, we were at San Martín. It was incredibly. To me, that was probably one of the most revealing regions, because I had no idea that so close, an hour and a half or an hour outside of Madrid, these beautiful, just delicate. They're also there's a delicacy to them, especially in their appearance. I don't know if you're holding up your glass, Lydia, just to what it looks like, but yeah, I mean, I think it's just it surprises me coming from that part of Spain. You don't expect it. It almost sometimes has sort of a Pinot Noir quality to it, and very, very unlike the Garnachas that come from Aragon and further north, and certainly Priorat.
Did you get to the vineyards? Because the vineyard that I went to, somebody mentioned Commando G, which is the name of that Daniel Landy project,
Yes.
but it looks like a fake Western movie set. I mean, there's gigantic boulders, it looks like the desert sort of, and then you'll find a big old gnarly garnacha vine, and you'll find another garnacha vine over here, another one over here, and they make these wines that are almost kind of like Reyes or Pilat or something like that. They have these great leather, strawberry fruit roll up kind of quality, with killer acidity and just intense earthiness. I mean, to me, those wines are just knocking me for a loop. So it's cool to hear about the Vinos de Madrid. And if you haven't had a wine from there, you should look at it because they're available, and the prices are killer too.
Exactly.
Particularly when one is able to travel to Spain again, which hopefully won't be too long from now, that is a trip that you can very easily make as the day trip outside of Madrid. So it's well worth it.
Yeah.
I was booked in the Rioja this week, and it got canceled by the virus. So my money's still sitting there waiting to go back. So.
Oh, well, hopefully that'll be soon.
Hopefully soon.
Well, the two of the best towns in Spain are just north of Rioja, right? Get up to San Sebastian and Bilbao.
We had 3 days in Rioja, 3 days in the Ribera, and 3 days in San Sebastian.
Wow.
It's on hold.
That's
Well, it'll be there for you when you're ready and when it's ready to have you.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So we were thinking about Catalan, and just to talk about it because it's fairly controversial, and Catalan people are a completely different type or sort. And there's for sure, spending a lot of time, and the road signs and everything are in Catalan, which is almost as hard to understand as being up in the north above Galicia, in the Basque region, kind of insane. But you have to think about the intense history back in the World War II and the Retirada after the Franco Civil War in 1939, and you can just imagine people that were trying to get across the Pyrenees to get into France. I mean, the stories. It's not a well-known story, I don't think, but if you're in that area up north of Girona and on the border between France and Spain, it's very very touching and moving to imagine the people that were trying to escape, to get up to France. And once they got to France, they found out that they put everybody in camp. So I mean, it's an amazing story. If you're a history buff, I always tell people if they want to learn more about wine, the number one thing they have to do is not just sit and read a book and do all that sort of thing, but look at what the history, the political history was. The history of the geography, like is it on a river? What happened on that river? If you look at the Rhone Valley and Lyon and all the Roman ruins, but you need to know about the history before you can really get into, the wines, I think. So I would ask everybody to take a look at the story of the Retirada, and get familiar with that. Not to get too historical or too political, but it means a lot for that region. And if you have wines, if you look for wines like from the Importa, which is one of my favorite white varietals, Garnacha Blanca, which is, Dave, you said you were drinking white Rioja earlier?
Yeah, well, I've got a white Rioja too, because I had to cover both regions, and I always like to have a white and a red.
Where's the white from?
The white's from Rioja. It's La Antigua Clásico. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay, and it's awesome. It's, the citrus fruit, bergamot, bitter orange, key lime, lots of ginger in it, but really clean and acidic.
Is it Viera?
Seafood. Excuse me?
Is that Viera?
It's Viera. It's about 70% Viera, about 20% Grenache Blanc, and about 10% Tempranillo Blanc. So,
for the people that are watching this, I mean, if you haven't had Garnacha Blanca, it is a cool wine. I mean, it's amazing. It has richness to it, but also it's fresh and amazing acidity. In Barcelona, I just forgot the name of that great restaurant there's, what's the one with the egg on it? Market, that place is, it just popped out of my head. Anyway, if you go there, you have some sardines, like sardine with on a piece of toasted bread with, maybe this is gross, but mayonnaise. Then you put the sardines in with a hard-boiled egg, and you have a glass of that Garnacha Blanca. my family always runs away when I start making that here at the house. But those wines are fantastic. You all had that wine before from Importa? Anybody? I'm sure wines of Spain.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Exploring the Wine Glass is brought to you by Dracaena Wines. Dracaena Wines is an artisan winery located in Paso Robles, California. They have been producing wine since 2013. Their first vintage began with one wine, their classic Cabernet Franc, which received a 91 in Wine Enthusiast. Since then, they have increased production as well as expanded their portfolio, have received many accolades including multiple double gold medals and consistent 90-plus ratings. Visit their website www.dracaenawines.com or use the link in the show notes to schedule a private tasting and to see their entire portfolio. Purchase your award-winning wine and let Dracaena Wines help turn your moments into great memories.
I was just talking about Garnacha Blanca and what a great wine that is. Anywhere from the Catalan region for sure. You get that either.
Yeah.
Macabeo.
You get a lot of Garnacha Blanca in the Monsanto area. The other side of the mountain from Priorat, and those are spectacular. Also in a region which is a little bit further west. It's not in Catalunya anymore. It's in Aragon, and that is the region of Somontano, which basically means the Piedmont, the foothills of the Pyrenees, and you get a lot of Garnacha Blanca there. But in the Ampurdá, I tasted a wine and I was totally blown away by it. It's from a producer called Macia Carreras, and that wine was beautiful. Back in the day, Jorge Ordóñez used to bring it in, and I happened to grab a couple of bottles once, and truly amazing. I fell in love with the ones from the Ampurdá. They're delicious.
In the Terra Alta region up there, I had a chance to make some Girello and also Garnacha Blanca. This label I was doing called Sacacorcho, which I was a sommelier at a restaurant, and they used to, every time I'd walk by, the Mexican guys would always go, Sacacorcho. I love that. So I named it after that, and I gave those guys all a case of the wine, which was really fun. But it's such a great round. That Terra Alta is just amazing place. There's all these wonderful hidden regions or regions we don't know about that much in Spain that are just fantastic.
Yeah, I've been reading about Bierzo. Do you know about Bierzo?
Yeah, definitely.
I was supposed to go through it on my trip as well. I hadn't had any, and I'm dying to try them. Do you know anything about Bierzo?
Yeah, Raul Perez. I mean, Ultrea. Those wines that he makes are fantastic. Sometimes you get them. They're more like Beaujolais, and sometimes kids, and then you can get them. They're a little more stuffing like that. But the wines are so fresh and delicious, purple. So I would say more like Côte d'Aron-ish or Beaujolais style and different. But check out Raul Perez if you ever get a chance to. I mean, that's everything.
Well, and I think let's not forget Alvaro Palacios's project in
Sure.
I mean he really helped sort of rediscover Bierzo and help put Mencía, I think, back on the sort of at least on the international map. But it's a beautiful region for starters because you're just leaving the high plateau area of Castilla León, and it is still Castilla León, but you're already getting up into into Galicia and green and the mountainous area. And I would also say that Mencía is one of the red grapes that I most enjoy unoaked. I mean, even though Bierzo is more, I think, better known for their aged Mencía. If you go west into Galicia, then you get to Ribera Sacra, and that's where I think the unoaked Mencías are beautiful.
Yeah.
I liken Mencía to like Cabernet Franc for some reason.
Yeah. I can see that. It has that herbaceous.
I love Cabernet Franc, so that's a major kudo. I love Mencía.
So we have a question from the audience I think is pretty interesting and pretty timely since we're all drinking wines at home and don't want to break the bank. Best Spanish wines under $60, ones that would really express a region. You guys have some thoughts?
Oh gosh, so many. I mean, starting with what the ones I was just talking about. I think starting with the Gredos wines, the Lydia's wine, the San Martin. Oh my gosh, so many.
Just so many.
Spain really delivers incredible wines. I think sort of across the board. But I mean, if you're willing to spend as little as $20, you can get some amazing wines. And of course, the Clos Erasmus, that'll put you back a few, but
but it's worth it. It's the Lafite. It's the Lafite of Spanish wine.
That's why I kind of wish I was with you right now, because I don't get to drink that wine very often.
But I'll tell you, the white I've got here is about $28 bottle, and I would stack it up as one of the most interesting white wines I'm going to drink. While I'm in under house arrest here. It's incredible. It's pure. It's rich in fruit, but it's pure on the finish. And
is it oak, Dave? Is there oak on it, or is it clean?
There's a little bit of oak on it. Yeah, there's a little bit of oak, but it's not overwhelming. All these Spanish wines are about balance.
Can you hold the bottle? Do you have the bottle?
Yeah, I do. Let's see.
Oh yeah. Yes, I can see it. The La Antigua Clásica.
Even though it's dark in here. But it's going great with pear. It would go great with shellfish. It would go great with chestnut soup.
But under $60. Under $60 from Spain, you can get amazing. You can get really, really amazing wines. I mean, Spain really over delivers. Unfortunately, a lot of people just go to Spain for their $8 wines, which are great. But if you're in that price bracket of between $30 and $60, you can find exceptional world-class wines that are unparalleled. Seriously, I mean, any wine in that price point is going to set you back, in the hundreds of dollars from many other wine regions. You can go to Douro, you can go to Ribera del Duero, you can go to the wines from Catalonia. You can be, top-end Riojas. I mean, the ones that we were talking now from Bierzo, from Ribera Sacra. I mean, and Spain is so diverse. It's so much. People, think of, I would say Rioja, Ribera del Duero. Those are the most popular regions in Spain. But I don't know how many appellations are there in Spain. Over 60 appellations, Katrin, in Spain.
Well, we're up to 71 now.
Yeah,
71 now. So there you go. So there's all these pockets with indigenous grape varieties, and like I said, amazing value. I really recommend exploring Spain. Spain's offer, you cannot go wrong. Seriously, particularly in that price point. $30 to $60, you're not going to go wrong.
I totally agree. It's just the diversity too is extraordinary. From the crisp, shellfish wines of Galicia to the richness towards the Priorat. I mean, it's just the diversity and the range of the palate, if you would. It's mind blowing. Explore.
This is a producer that I picked when I was in Priorat 2 years ago. Ferrer Bobet. His basic wines are 30-ish. And the old vines here is like 50. He's more of a modern producer, but the wines are rich and they're beautiful. And I just picked this up recently, and it's for that price range.
Oh wow! That's a new one for me.
Well, I have one that I'm sure nobody's.
Winery up on the hill.
I import a wine that I doubt any of you have heard of.
I decided to drink a Rioja today. Okay, this one is one drinking. I decided to take this wine because it's a 2010, but this is a particular wine because it has it's called Cuatro Varietales or Colección Vivanco, and they have the four typical grapes in Rioja, which is pretty unique because normally you have Tempranillo, Son Mazuelo, Tempranillo, Graciano. This one has the four grapes: Tempranillo, Graciano, Garnacha, and Mazuelo. But I mean, this wine is really powerful, and this is a wine when some vineyards in Rioja and other places started to do something different. That we're using for many, many years. I'm trying to experiment and do different wines. And my message, or what I wanted to say, is what this wine is really, you drink it, you feel it's a Rioja. It's a little bit alcoholic. It has 14.5, but it's powerful, it's complex. They have all the traditional red fruit in Rioja, but also some toffee, regaliz. It's traditional, but you see something is changing. I'm saying that because the progress of Spanish wines, and I'm talking as an aficionado, I'm not really professional wine, in the last 25, 30 years have been absolutely unbelievable. And in all the traditional regions, but in others too. And you were talking about the Mencía and Galicia and Bierzo, and I was not sure if I should drink this Rioja, or I was thinking in drinking one wine from Telmo Rodriguez, Odiviso. The wines in that region are spectacular, and for me, being a Spaniard is a discovery, because they are so different from other wines like the Rioja, the Mediterranean, where it's a different climate, and this is something that is good for the wine, but it's serious for the earth, because I think it's due to the climate change. That wine, the red wine from Ribera Sacra 30 years ago, was almost undrinkable. I mean, it was a wet, very, very humid region, relatively cold. So it was in the border to really produce a good wine. The rainfall has been reduced in the last years, and the temperatures have been risen for a little bit. Another wine is, you were mentioning, is that like a wine that previously did not exist in Spain. So you can find this range of wines, and in a very, very small territory. So enjoy it. Go there, enjoy all of them.
Jeff, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking the 2007 Cuney Imperial Gran Reserva.
It's nice.
And I'm a huge fan of traditionally made Rioja. And when you talk about traditionally made Rioja, there aren't that many anymore. But to me, the sort of three that really stand out are López de Heredia, La Rioja Alta, and Cuney. And the Cuney Imperial Gran Reserva is always good. And the 07, it's a little young, but it's just so interesting. It's got that great leathery character that I just love in traditional Rioja. And I'm enjoying it now, but I'm thinking I have a bunch more, and it'll be so much better in 10 more years. I love old Rioja. And I have a lot of traditionally made Rioja. But I also wanted to mention, just because people were talking about obscure wines from Spain, I import the most obscure wine you'll ever find from Spain. It's from a village that literally has 10 people in it. And the producer I work with, he and his family are 5 of the 10.
Okay, so what is this?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Curiosity's got me here.
Yeah.
Okay, the name of the wine is called Sauvea, and it's Lucinia Canta is the cuvée, and it's a blend of Syrah, Garnacha, Tempranillo, Samoy, and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Where's it from?
From the Pyrenees Mountains.
Ah, excellent.
From the Costa del Segre, the village is really
So the winery is Sauvera?
Sauvea,
Sauvea.
Sauvella. It's about $30 retail, and the winemaker himself is Dutch, which is pretty odd too. He's a Dutchman who moved to the Pyrenees to make
That's
wine.
the Pyrenees, man. The Pyrenees is where all the oddballs go, right?
He's a Dutch geologist who moved to the Pyrenees to make wine, and it's really cool stuff.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Awesome.
You mentioned López de Heredia, which is, people were talking about wines under 60, and they, traditionally will release things that are quite a bit older, so you can get killer bottles for around $40. I know you came from the Tondonia, I can't remember what vintage they're on, 2008 or something insane, or 09 right now. That's an amazing bottle to get. And then I forgot to mention Cava, which is obviously a big part of Catalan independentist region. And I saw some good comments about what was going on. People talking about how much better it is than Prosecco, which I'm not trying to say anything's better than anything else, but Cava is pretty delicious. It's always nice to have a nice bottle in the fridge now.
Yeah.
So that's great. There's like Palacios, I think Terrasses, is pretty inexpensive. Well, $35. I'm just thinking of things that are under $40. There's so many amazing wines. Everybody always asks me, what's the wine that changed your life that you wanted to be a sommelier from, or what really got you interested in wine? That's a question I get a lot. And I was doing it for the Court of Master Sommeliers, and people were saying these wines like Vega Sicilia, 1962, and all these amazing wines. But the wine that did it for me was a long time ago when I was in college was, don't laugh, Sangre de Toro with the bull hanging off of the neck, and I was like, what the hell is that? That is weird wine. It's cool. There's a little bull, and I put it on my keychain, and these are the things that get people excited. And so I went to learn about it. I hate to say it was before the internet, so I couldn't go do that, but I did find out a little more information on it and found out what it was made from, and that really turned the light on for me. And so, it doesn't matter sometimes what the prices are, but I'm just saying, at the time, that bottle was probably $4 or $5. And being in college, that's what I needed to get me excited into it. So Spain was really the region that turned me on for the most part. Anyhow,
well, I'll drink to that.
Yeah.
I'll raise my glass to that.
First time I ever spent more than $10 on a bottle of wine was a La Rioja Alta Grand Reserva 890 from 1973.
Wow.
$13.99 for it. And I thought,
oh man, that's the steal of the century.
It was.
I love the 890.
It was mind blowing. It was great.
Peter, we just had a question come from the audience about the 73 vintage of Rioja.
It was outstanding.
It's
If
the best.
you're 73, if you were born in 73, Rioja is one of the greatest choices.
Thank God it's a rough vintage elsewhere.
There are many others.
I'd say 64 and 73, and then 2001. Those are the vintages that stand out.
Okay.
What do you got there, Felipe?
Felipe Peronia. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So this 1973 was the year that my family's winery in Rioja was founded. It wasn't founded by us. We bought it in 1982, but it was a winery founded in 1973 by a group of friends, businessmen from Bilbao that liked to get together for good eating and drinking. And one happy summer evening after they had drank like two bottles each, they said, hey, why don't we start our own winery? With the amount of wine we drink ourselves and what we can sell to our friends, we'll make our money back in no time. So the 40 friends invested and founded Peronia in 1973. And it did very well. It was mostly sold in the Basque Country, the wines, and then my family bought it in 1982. And it's we've taken the winery to a completely new level. And since we're talking about it, if you allow me, because I'm drinking. I decided to open 2 bottles, and I have no help. My wife has come in for a glass, but I might be suffering tomorrow. But I thought I wanted to do this because it's quite interesting. I have a Ribera del Duero from Arzuaga, and it's a Gran Reserva from 2001. Okay, most of the Ribera del Dueros that you will find do not really go by Reserva, Gran Reserva classifications. Mostly are cosechas. Okay, they because it's a much younger wine region, so this is a winery that follows the traditional aging and the aging requirements, the 24 months in barrel or even more, and the traditional aging like in Rioja. And then I have another wine, which is another school. This is also from Bodegas Baroni. It's called 3AC. And this is one of the wines that we would call Rioja de Autor, okay? So Rioja started trying to replicate or imitate the wines that were more fruit forward, more intense, more concentration, more emphasis on the vineyard, as opposed to, you know, the long aging periods for Crianza Reservas and Gran Reservas. So, you know, this is kind of interesting, because a lot of these wines, you know, with that fruit intensity, with that concentration, you know, I had my doubts at the time. Said, okay, these wines are great to drink now. You know, when the other Mr. Parker was rating the wines, they were looking for that concentration, for you know, that depth, that fruit. So a lot of wineries started going that style. I said, well, it's drinking great now, but what about a few years from now? So I have a few bottles of this left. So this is a Vino de Autor. This Baronia 3AC is a Vino de Autor from 2001. There in the capsule, I think you can see the label.
Yeah.
And it's really drinking beautifully. I mean, both wines are. But I'm drinking a classic, I would say, a Ribera del Duero done in Rioja style, and a Rioja done in Ribera del Duero style. And, you know, pretty amazing.
I like it.
Okay, so Felipe, cork those bottles, and I'll drive by your house and pick them up in front of the garage, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Well, I'm going to pass it over to Michelle to sort of see if there's any questions that we can answer as well.
Yes. So every week when we send out the invitation for viewers to join us, we get people writing in some questions. And the question that we have 3 people write in, and I see somebody on the chat, Bruce, just asked, everybody wants to know about Vega Sicilia.
Sicilia.
Yeah, thank you.
You're Italian.
Yeah.
Italian name, you, Michelle.
Exactly. But they want to know what makes it so special. Is it worth the price? Is there a hype to it? Yeah, so would anyone like to comment on this?
It is worth the price.
Yeah.
Take it from there.
It's if you've had, you know, I mean, I can count the moments that I've had it, which are rare. There's a great restaurant in I believe it's in Figueres or maybe Girona. It's called El Motel. I don't think anybody knows about it. I hope they never do, because it's one of the best restaurants I've ever been to in my life. And was fortunate to have a 1990 Vega Sicilia Unico there. And I mean, that's the high end of it. But that vineyard is unbelievable, with a little, you know, Tempranillo from Ribera del Duero with a little touch of Cabernet in it. Sometimes it's hard to explain, you know. I live in Napa Valley. I work with a Napa winery, and people ask me all the time, well, why is it that price? You know, is it that good? And sometimes it's hard to really answer that question until you had the wine, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? I mean, I've had those experiences a few times in my life with Latache, you know, 1990 as well. And it's really hard to explain. It just makes you stop in your tracks. And that wine, it's almost disrespectful to say, oh, I get blackberry and I get whatever else. What you get is, you know, this unreal feeling, which I know that's not really explaining the question. So maybe
Why do they release it so late? What's the process why they release it so late? It's got to be different than most.
It's a 10-year. I know it's 10-year minimum aging for sure.
All in barrel, yeah. There are only a few wines that are so far above their peers that you don't even discuss them in the same sentence quite often. And you know, you mentioned DRC. You can talk about Decam. In Australia, you can talk about Penfolds Grange. As you say, it's almost disrespectful to try to compare it to the other wines in the same country. And Vega Sicilia Unico does have a little cab in it, so it's a little bit more international style. But I think it's the aging, it's the complexity, it's the care. You know, you may know that the chem, they go through the vineyard how many times, and they're pulling individual berries off. They almost treat the fruit with that same care there. The complexity, the balance, the perfection is at a world-class level, not at a national level. You could set that side by side with the great Bordeaux's, the first growth Bordeaux's with a lot of age, and it would almost be more at home there than it would side by side with most of the other Spanish wines.
I agree. I agree with you, Dave. What you said. I mean, you mentioned the word, and it's perfection, and that's what they strive for, and I think that's what they achieve. I've been to Vega Sicilia on numerous occasions, fortunately, and the wines are so elegant, so well made. You go, the winery is pristine. They take such care of the vineyards. They have a beautifully exposed vineyard. They put so much attention to every single detail. And you say, well, is it worth it? Well, that's up to you, whether you like it or not. Some people might find a Ferrari uncomfortable, So that's really up to you. It's the two things: price and value, and value is what we assign to something. But when you go there and you see how meticulous they are, how well the wine is, in my view, totally worth it. And if you like to age wines, if you like to see how they're going to develop with time, and you have a passion for this, absolutely is worth it. Is a wine that any wine lover should experience. If you're into this, if you just want to have a drink and have a good wine, there are many options, but there are these things that one has to try. And if you're a wine lover, you definitely have to try that wine.
I would also say that the multi-vintage Unico is a really interesting experience. That's, I think, even more interesting than the vintage Unico.
Yeah, the
But just even adding to the scarcity of the vintage Unicos is that they only declare Unico years. There's only a certain number of years in a decade where they make an Unico. Right. So that, I think, that also contributes greatly to the je ne sais quoi.
We have a question about Pingus too, which is also on the very short list of the very best wines out of Spain. Would anyone like to comment?
I just had Florida Pingus about a week ago. Very ripe style. I mean, Parker style all the way. I mean, it was over 15%. It was very ripe. I could just imagine what Pingus would be. I didn't think that as much of it as I had hoped I would. It was good. Well, it was very ripe.
I haven't tasted that vintage, Ed, but your comments might be misleading if taken in at wholesale. I've tasted many wines from Ribera del Duero, and Pingus, it's really at another level. They're just so elegant. I mean, you find a lot of Ribera del Dueros that are very muscular, very fruit forward, very concentrated, and that is changing a little bit. But Pingus to me is elegance. Pure, it's power, it's concentration, but at the same time is elegance. At least when the couple of times that I have tasted, because it's not a bottle that comes at an affordable price for regular consumption. But
it's so different than Florida Pingus too. I mean, completely different.
Yeah, but Pingus is what, about $800, and Florida Pingus is $130, $150. Then they have yet another wine, okay, that is called PSI, and PSI is also made by Peter Sisek, and that's about $30-$35 a bottle. So if you want to, dip your toes into what Peter Sisek is doing, I would suggest try the PSI, and then if you want to splurge one day, well, then maybe go for the Pingus, for the Florida Pingus, and then eventually get to the Pingus itself. But I find those wines super elegant. I don't find them. Maybe it's a vintage thing. I don't. But comparing to other Riberas, I find pure elegance in the wines from Peter Sisek. Myself, that's my opinion.
Hey guys, I know we could keep going for a while, but I've been given the flashing green light or red light, I guess. So we should wrap it up. But I think some of the keys here are it's fun. It's a great thing to try new wines from Spain that you haven't seen before, and you can be very confident that whatever you get, you're not going to get anything you're not going to be happy with for sure. So do some experimenting, and sometimes that the wines. The very expensive wines that we've been talking about, like Vega Sicilia, that's not something. I've had 3 times in my life. So you should look for them sometimes and get a bottle. And particularly in the state we're all in right now, it's a great time to open some pretty incredible bottles.
Yeah.
Drink a lot, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I know, Michelle, you probably want to wrap it up. I really appreciate it.
So much, Chris, for being our amazing host tonight, and thank you to all of our panelists for joining us, but most importantly, thank you to all of our viewers for staying with us for the past hour and coming back week after week. Don't forget, check out United Sommeliers Foundation. If you can donate, you're helping so many people. Share it with your friends, your family on social media. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Michelle.
This has been another episode of Exploring the Wine Glass. Thanks for listening. If you have any suggestions on what topics you would like me to discuss, please reach out on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Exploring the Wine Glass. I'm also on LinkedIn as Lori Hoyt-Budd. Of course, you can always email me at exploringthewineglass@gmail.com. If you enjoyed our podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher to help others find me more easily. And of course, tell your wine-loving friends, because if you like the podcast, they will too. Until next week, Sláinte!